ratios and proportions is being able to work within these fractions. So that first fraction on your screen, you have 2/3 divided by 3/4. So if you do that on your calculator, then you just have to be really careful, because I know that 2/3 divided by 3/4 is like taking two fractions. If you have your calculators, you got to just make sure that it's dividing, and it doesn't get anything goofed up in there and turn it to multiplication. So I think the calculators you're using are pretty good, but if not, you want to make sure the other thing is that you keep these as fractions, because they have repeating decimals, whereas if I keep this as a fraction, I'm not going to lose anything with my decimal. So 2/3 divided by 3/4 is 8/9. Everybody get that? And 1/8 divided by 3/10. So when you have a fraction divided by a fraction, it's kind of like multiplying by the reciprocal of the denominator. So you could get 10/24. But we know that 10/24 simplifies to what? Got it, Dominique?
5/12.
Perfect. Okay, and what about this one here? It's 2 1/3 divided by 2/5. So on your calculator, you either had to add these together, or what could we do to 2 1/3? Dominique, what'd you do?
I divided by it, and I got about 1 3/7.
Okay, so not saying that's not your answer. I want to know how we could change 2 1/3 though to an improper fraction as opposed to a mixed number, so that we can make sure our calculators do this correctly. So does anybody know what 2 1/3 is as an improper? You said it. You said it. You had the 7. How come you changed it back to a 6? So it's 3 times 2, which is 6. Add 1, so it's 7/3. And then we're dividing that by 2/5, which is really like multiplying by its reciprocal, which is 5/2. So we get 35/6. Sorry. So your final answer for the orange bubble is 35/6. Yeah, I think maybe, did you miss the 2, I think? When you gave your other answer, I think you missed the 2.
Yeah, I was I thought you doing 5 divided by 7.
Oh, you went down to blue. Gotcha.
I didn't know where you were at.
Sometimes I don't know where I'm at either. It's okay. Let's do the green and the blue then. So 3/9 divided by 2, again, is something you want to keep as a fraction, because it's going to be a repeating decimal. So 3/9 divided by 2 as a fraction is what? Go ahead.
1/6.
Perfect. And then 5 divided by 7/2 is again kind of like multiplying by its reciprocal. So it's 2 times 5/7, which becomes 10/7. just kind of working with multiplying and dividing fractions. I know sometimes that it's not that we don't know how to do the algebra, it's that we get stuck with the multiplying and dividing. Is everybody okay with that? So we're still looking at proportions today. And we're going to look at proportions that are more like some of the homework problems we had trouble with. So we're going to look at proportions that involve distributing. So we're going to look at proportions that involve distributing. So we're going to cross multiply. So that means you have 12 times x plus 3 equals 5 times 24. And when you have a constant being multiplied by a quantity, we have to distribute. And then 5 times 24 is 120. And now it's like solving equations from the last area that we worked on. So you're going to take 120, subtract 36, and then you get 12x equals 84. Divide both sides by 12. And we get x equals, anybody know what 84 divided by 12 is? 7. So what that's saying is that the fraction 5 over 12 is equal to 7 plus 3 over 24, or really 10 over 24. And what would you multiply 5 over 12 by to get to 10 over 24? How can I get 5 twelfths to 10 24s, Nick? Perfect. Multiply by 2. So do you see how you can kind of check it by plugging in what you get for the x into the fraction? Number 2, 2x plus 8 over 7 equals x plus 3 over 5. So we're going to cross multiply, and this one's a little bit trickier because now I have to distribute twice. Yes. So you get 7x plus 21 equals 10x plus 40. And exactly, now this is a multi-step equation. This is what we did in 2-4, maybe? 2-3? So do we want to move the 7 or the 10x? What do you want to move, Zoe? Me too. And next, what are we going to do? Go ahead, Zoe. So 21 take away 40 is going to give you a negative. Don't drop it. And what's the last thing? Go ahead, Dominique.
You divide 3x is negative 19.
Perfect. So I'm going to divide both sides by 3. And my final answer is x equals 19 thirds.
I put in negative 6.3 over here.
Okay, so that is correct, but remember what I told you about getting a repeating decimal. If we get a repeating decimal, we want to keep it as a fraction. Okay? Yes, Luke.
I put negative 6.
That's perfect. You okay, Zoe?
Yeah.
All right, let's cross multiply. Five times 5 is
25.
x times x becomes why would our book do that? 5x times 3. Good. 4x plus, and then 4 times 13. Good. So, we'd subtract 4x from both sides. It's going to be a nice one, but it has to be. I was wondering if it should have just been a 5 and not a 5x.
Yeah, that's another thing. Because at this stage, you've not done the quadratic form, which is where you're headed.
Yeah. All right, kiddos, so if we get an x squared, we're going to leave it as is. Yes.
How did you get about 25x squared?
Yeah, I think it should, I honestly think it should have just been 5x, or just 5 without an x. I think your textbook had a little bit of a misprint on me there, because we aren't looking at any x squared terms this year. Or at least not this unit. So don't stress too much about this example. I'm going to change my notes now for next year.
So isn't this problem equal like what we were doing before where we had to get two numbers?
Yes.
I got it now.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
What
what
was
we're
the
trying
answer
to
to this
say
one?
right now because.
What?
We
What was
have
the
not.
answer to this one?
The final answers?
Solve this problem yet.
Is it? So it'd just be that. I think
Yeah, it's
right.
Right.
So there'd be decimals. Did you get decimals? Yeah, they'd be
That's
decimals.
all you can do with that at this point.
Mm. Maybe I was a misprint. Maybe I put an X and shouldn't have. A good possibility.
Either way,
Beyond them.
yeah, and it works real well for them if they had just the one X, but if they don't.
Yeah. All right. Word problems. Jenny hiked 14 miles in 3 hours. If she continues to hike, how long will it take her to hike 35 miles? So, we want to set up a proportion relating miles to time or hours. So she did how many miles and how many hours to start? So her first time is 14 miles. and 3 hours. How long will it take her to hike? 35 miles. So do we know how many hours she hiked 35 miles? No, that's my x. So cross multiplying gives 14x equals 35 times 3. And then what do I do to solve for x? Good?
You divide 14,
Perfect.
and that'd be 7.5, or
Yep, you're right.
okay.
And what would that 7.5 represent? Miles or hours?
Hours.
Hours. Excellent.
So do you still have to sell for miles, or just?
No, because they gave you the miles.
Oh.
So what we solved for was how many hours would it take her to go 35 miles? So it would take 7.5 hours, so a whole school day, to hike 35 miles. So you've decided to make chocolate chip cookies for the teachers at the high school. The recipe calls for 3/4 cups of sugar to make 20 cookies. There are 60 teachers, and you want to make each teacher 1 cookie. How many cups of sugar do you need? Okay, Logan.
Oh wait, I was gonna say 3, but that's something else.
So let's set up our first proportion. What proportion or fraction do we want to start with? Go ahead, Dominique. What do you want to start with?
3/4, but I changed it to 1.75,
Okay.
and underneath it, you put 20,
Okay.
equal to 60, and under X.
Good. So she said the 60 goes under the X, which is super important. So 3/4 crosses to X, 20 and 60, because 20 cookies, 60 teachers. Cross multiply. You get 20X equals 3/4 times 60. So 3/4 times 60. And then divide that number by, so you get 20x equals 45. So how many cups of sugar? Nick? Good. So you could have had 9/4 or, yep, 2 1/4 or 2.25 cups of sugar. Because all your teachers are super sweet.